You ready? I told her I was going to do it to her. This regular meeting of the Judson Board of Trustees is hereby called to order at 7 p.m. I'm very pleased that you've taken time to join us this evening. As the Judson Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals and policies and oversee the management of the district. We are responsible for approving budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and to listen to reports from the superintendent. We are not here to make administrative or management decisions pertaining to the daily operations of the district. This is the responsibility of the superintendent. In compliance with the State Government Code on Open Meetings, tonight's agenda has been appropriately posted. This is a meeting in public, not a meeting of the public. As our guests, you're welcome to observe and listen. These proceedings are being video and audio recorded and will become part of Judson's permanent legal record. In order that the tape adequately reflects these proceedings, please silence your mobile devices and refrain from talking while others are speaking. Since it is legally mandated that these proceedings are recorded accurately, I may have to ask for order periodically, should I notice that disruptions are interfering with our recording capabilities. Once again, I extend to each of you a sincere welcome from the entire school board. Thank you for your interest in Judson ISD. We have established a quorum, and I will call roll. Mr. LaFoyle.
Here. Thank you for coming.
Ms. Kenoyer.
Here. Welcome. Glad to have you all with us.
Mr. Macias.
Welcome. It is an honor to see all you here today.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Here. Welcome.
Ms. Pichelle.
Present and welcome.
And I am Dr. Melinda Salinas. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And we also want to welcome everyone who's watching live. Tonight's our first live stream broadcast, so you can all start watching live third Thursday of every month. And to my left, we have our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Carl Montoya.
Present, and you've made it this far.
If you'll please rise for invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you please bow your head. Dear Lord, we thank you for getting us to this point during the school year. Things are never easy, but through you and with you and the support that you give our staff, our parents, and our students, we're able to get through and do a great job in not only educating, but about caring for each other and our students. We ask that you continue through into the summer, that you help us, and we ask that everyone be safe as they go home after today's meeting. We pray in your name. Amen.
I'd like to introduce to you our pledge leader for this evening. Come on up, Natanya. This is Natanya Workman. She's an outstanding fifth grade student at Coronado Village Elementary School. Natanya is a great model for perseverance and integrity. She's the student council secretary and is often the first person who offers help when it's needed. She has volunteered to pick up trash on the playgrounds and a number of other duties. She greets people in the hallway to spread smiles, and she continually works hard inside and outside of the classroom. Let's join Natalia in the Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. and Texas flags.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
You may be seated. Let's give Natanya a nice hand for a good job.
Come shake all our hands in a minute.
I think Natanya's mom is sitting up here. Could you stand just to be recognized, please? We'd also like to recognize our color guard for this evening, coming from Veterans Memorial High School Junior ROTC, Cadet Captain Lamacia Sarif, Cadet Captain Leilari Felix, Cadet Captain Jose Gonzalez, and Cadet Corporal Emily Vela. Their instructor is retired Sergeant Major Derek Allard. All right, we have a number of board recognitions this evening, so as we get going with our first one is coming from Coronado Village Elementary School. Each year, HEB recognizes outstanding teachers across the state through the Excellence in Education Awards. Receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award for her work in music education is Bonnie Anderson. Ms. Anderson, with this award, received a $25,000 check and a matching grant of another $25,000 for her school. This is given to teachers who have kept a standard of teaching excellence of 20 years or more. Our next recognition comes from Judson Early College Academy. The Boys and Girls Club each year selects a Youth of the Year. After many interviews, speeches, writing, and personal preparation, JECA student Savannah Mayhood was selected San Antonio Youth of the Year. Savannah? She qualified for the state competition in Houston. That was an amazing event. She was not selected for that, but represented Judson ISD very well, and her mom is here as well, along with her. Our next recognition comes from Metzger Middle School. For years now, the Metzger music program has been setting the bar very, very high. The instructors are not just good, but they provide students that educational balance that comes from music education. The National Association of Music Merchants Foundation has awarded the school the Support Music Merit Award for providing access and music education to all students. The instructors are Director of Bands John Robertson, Assistant Band Director Brian Ains, Orchestra Director Brian Coker, and Choir Director Andrew Sanchez. Their principal is Dr. Tracy Valray. All right, our next recognition comes from Judson High School. The Auto Tech Skills team at Judson went to the Skills USA competition recently in Corpus Christi. Mr. Sergio Salinas' team of Francisco Cruz and Christopher Lamont competed against a dozen teams and came away with a bronze medal for Auto Career Promotions demonstration. I'd also like to mention, too, that in addition, the Judson Automotive Technology Program recently received a tremendous achievement. It has successfully passed the ASE, the Automotive Service Excellence Accreditation. This 5-year industry approval provides even more credibility to Judson's program and provides more certifications for students. And will the parents of these students, if you're here, can you stand up or raise your hand? Or our next recognition also comes from Judson High School. Recently, the National Spanish Exam was taken by students across the country. 30 students from Judson were acknowledged for their exceptional performance, and we want to recognize them this evening. At the silver level, Mariana Montoya, Jose Diaz. At the bronze level, Deanna Gonzalez, Melanie Villarreal, Megan Smalley, Alea Spinata, and Lisbeth Nieto. We have a pretty large group here because we have honorable mentions as well. Jesus Jimenez, James Lee, Eileen Rodriguez, Isamari Aquino, Valeria Barba, Augustin Barraza, Saeed Barraza, Melissa Gaitan, Adriana Gilhalva Campbell, Alex Lopez, Perla Melchor, Edwin Rivera Mundo, Rosa Rojas, Vanessa Montano, Cheryl Ann Santiago Marino, Sarah Peacock, Christian Bonzo, Michelle Castruita, Diana Garza, Madeline Hernandez, Ariana McKinn, Cecilia Wynn, and Annette Nino. I would also ask the parents, if you're not taking pictures, if you could stand and or raise your hand or something, let us acknowledge you. We good? All right. All right. Thank you very much. Now, our next recognition comes from Converse Elementary School. The National Elementary Honor Society recently recognized outstanding programs around the country. This was the first year to recognize an Honor Society Advisor of the Year, and it went to Dee Dee Harrelson. She was one of 2 chosen nationally. By the way, Converse Elementary was also recognized this year for Outstanding Service Project of the Year for their Veterans Day Salute. The principal there is Cynthia Davis. And Ms. Davis, you might want to stay up there because the next one's for Converse Elementary as well. Our next recognition comes from Converse Elementary School. In terms of STEM programs, the NASA Liftoff Summer Institute is one of the most prestigious and competitive learning opportunities for teachers each summer across the state. Chosen this year from Converse Elementary School is 5th grade teacher Juliana Berry. Ms. Berry leads the STEM programs at Converse and is the future robotics sponsor there as well. Just want to check real quickly, do we have the representatives from Walmart as well as Samaritan's Feet here this evening? Okay, great. All right, just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to go through that and nobody show up here. Our next recognition is not necessarily an award from a competition, but a recognition of gratitude that the board wanted to extend. Samaritan's Feet is a global organization that gives hope and encouragement to kids through the washing of feet and the gift of shoes. Their partnership with Walmart to do this brought them to the Candlewood Elementary campus recently, and the district wanted to acknowledge their time and their efforts with certificates of appreciation. They touched a lot of hearts that day. Here this evening with Walmart, representing the volunteers, are Dave Madison, Cynthia Johnson, Terry Hines, and Ricardo Cepeda. And representing Samaritan's Feet is Regional Coordinator Mithakar Pickett. And I will tell you, if you haven't seen some of the photos from that event, as well as a soon-to-be finished video, I would recommend that you check it out because it was really, truly a very special and unique event over there. Our next recognition comes from Judson High School. The Texas Forensics State Tournament recently hosted student performers from all over the state in Lavernia, and 2 students came away with a state championship. Winning first place in duo acting were Josh Mayo and Nathaniel Cullors. Now, Nathaniel was not able to be here tonight, but he is accompanied here by instructors Larry Bailey and Larissa Lyons. Josh, are your parents and your family here? Also wanted to acknowledge Alexis Patterson. She was not able to be here this evening, but she was also a state finalist at the tournament for poetry competition as well. The Judson FFA chapter sent a team to compete in the State Nursery Landscape Career Development Contest. More than 15,000 students began the statewide tournament in 28 different events. Judson's nursery and landscape team placed 9th overall, and the team is here tonight. Students are Ariana Rangel, Stephen Morales, Alexa Milstein, and Dylan Cole. Their instructor is Mr. Jay Trees. And if there are some parents here for these students, can you raise your hand or stand up, please, so we can acknowledge you? Also coming from Judson High School is a group of very artistic individuals. This group participated in the VASE, or Visual Arts Scholastic event in San Marcos, and did exceptionally well. 6 students competed, and these 4 received Division I or Division II awards as state contestants. Haley Stolz, Roxy Alba, Justin Call, who could not be here this evening, and Michaela Aguilar. Their instructors are Margaret Trost and Catherine Davis. And my guess would be the folks standing taking pictures are family members. And from 2 schools comes a recognition in the area of counseling. The Texas School Counselors Association acknowledges outstanding counseling programs through a program called CREST, which stands for Counselors Reinforcing Excellence for Students in Texas. It spotlights teams that improve the lives of students at so many different levels. The CREST Award was earned by the counseling staffs at Judson High School and Converse Elementary School. Those counselors at Judson are Joanne Cruz, Destiny Price, Velma Lopez, Stormy Wilson, Misty Ornales, Arlene Walden, Christian Angulo, Mike France, Leslie McClellan, and Thomas Jimenez, and Michelle Tabila. From Converse Elementary, Counselor Amy Hadass. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
From Converse Elementary. Congratulations.
And our final recognition comes from Wagner High School. The Business Professionals of America hosted its annual conference and competition in Dallas earlier this month, and a team of 3 students competed in the software engineering category and represented the district very well. They came away being ranked in the top 10 in their category, designing a game called Larry the Light Bulb. It can be found in the Google and Apple stores as a free download, by the way. Please congratulate Austin Aurelio, Evan Barrera, and Marvin Venezuela. And parents, can you raise your hand or stand? There you go. Thank you very much. And we are blessed to have so many quality students and teachers. Those are the recognitions for this evening. Sorry, I should have provided you some chairs. Sorry. Did you make it okay?
Oh, yeah, I'm okay. Okay, is that really good?
We'll now move on to item 3. And before we start that, is Councilman Tom Maxwell here from Universal City? Thank you for being here. And earlier we had Beverly Volley. Beverly Volley, yes. Thank you so much. Councilman Haddis? I don't see him. Oh, he was here earlier, yes. Okay. Item number 3, acknowledgement of visitors and citizens to be heard. This time is provided for citizens to address the board on issues or concerns. A person may speak one time for a period of 3 minutes. Presentations shall be informative only. No board action will be taken. A complaint or charge against an officer or employee of the district is not allowed in open session. Complaints and concerns should first be addressed by campus and/or district administration. If your topic involves a personnel matter, a student matter, or if you contend that your legal rights have been violated or board policy not followed, we have specific grievance procedures, DGBA legal and local, for these matters, and now is not the appropriate time to discuss these matters. Also, as a reminder, you are not allowed to refer to any individual by name. We respectfully ask that you refrain from making personal attacks or rude or slanderous remarks or becoming boisterous. The presiding officer shall determine whether a person who wishes to address the board has attempted to solve a matter administratively. If not, the person shall be directed to the appropriate policy to seek resolution before bringing the matter to the board at a subsequent meeting. Citizens wishing to receive a response from concerns presented to the board must provide written documentation. The board shall not deliberate or decide regarding any subject that is not included on the agenda posted with notice of the meeting. And the first person is Sherry Brister, and the agenda item to be discussed is TAG.
Good evening. My name is Sherry Brister, and I am a tag teacher in the district. I've been in the district for 25 years, taught tag for 12, so it holds a special place in my heart. And I just wanted to talk to everyone this evening about, what tag is about. And I invite everybody, anybody, come into the classroom to see what these students do. I walk away every afternoon amazed at what the kids say, what they do. I talk to the parents and tell them, you would not believe what your child said today, and the parents think, uh-oh, what did they say? But the amazing things that they say. I watched the video of the April 25th meeting about the budget, and I know you guys have hard decisions to make, and I respect that. I just wanted to give you a little background into the tag children, and I heard Ms. Rodriguez say, people that are impacted by these budget cuts, maybe we should hear how it would impact them. So I talked to my students, and this is more about, how the students would feel. I have some students that were here when the district did the split campuses, and of course their opinion said, or they said that they didn't like it, of course, because when they would start a project, and they did a lot of projects, a lot of research, they would have to come back, 2 weeks later, refocus, kind of start again, rethink. So a lot of wasted time. And these are things they're not able to do in the regular classroom because the regular classroom teachers have, their agenda, what they have to teach. So in the tag classroom, the children get the time to really use their imagination. They get to speak about what they want to speak about. They have someone that will listen. Not that their other teachers don't listen, but they don't have time because the tag children love to speak. They love to tell you everything that they know. And they want to know what you think about it. And so, I feel like the tag teachers are the advocates on campus, and they're there. And for example, I have a first grader that happened to be observed in the regular classroom. He caused a lot of problems. The teacher spoke with me about it and said, we really need to do something for him. Well, coincidentally, in my classroom, he was in there when I was observed, and totally different child. on task, focused, no behavior problems. He, just asked questions and shared what he knew and came up with ideas like, let's try this, let's try that. Worked with the other children on his level. So the whole point is, the program is very valuable. It's very important to the children. And I, just want to let you guys know, whatever your decision is, it really will impact the children. And thank you for listening.
Next, we have Emily Como, and the agenda item is funding for talented and gifted program.
Hi, my name is Emily Como, and congratulations on the pronunciation, by the way. I would just like to speak with y'all briefly. I'm a parent of 3 children in the TAG program at an elementary school here in Judson. And we had the privilege, when my daughter was in 3rd grade, to be a part of the pilot program called MRAS. And I just can't sing the praises of this program enough. I've kind of jotted down some notes here. So first of all, I just wanted to say that the Talented and Gifted program as a whole shines a positive light on the entire district. And it was just a few weeks ago, we were actually highlighted in the Express News for a project that they were doing in class. And we get a lot of press. I'm actually a graduate of Judson High School, so a lot of press and not always great. And this is just an amazing opportunity, I think, to show other districts where they can kind of step up their game. And I want to speak a little bit to MRAS in itself. So basically, this program allows students to be a part of an accelerated study in mathematics and reading, in addition to cross-curricular projects as well as independent learning. And what's different is this is 4 out of the 5 days of the school week, and this is unheard of. And so, like I said, my daughter started this as a 3rd grader. She's now a 4th grader, and she's thrilled that her brother, who will be in 3rd grade next year, will be able to work side by side with her on projects. And so this is almost like bringing college to the elementary school with the amount of independent learning that takes place. So in conclusion, a full-time position is necessary to sustain the program of MRAS. So I ask that you please ensure funding to keep TAG teachers in full-time positions at their home campuses. Thank you.
Next, we have Meredith Jacobson, and the agenda item is budget.
Good evening, board members, cabinet members, Dr. Salinas, and Dr. Montoya. My name is Meredith Jacobson, and I am the TAG teacher at an elementary school here in Judson. I have had the pleasure of teaching in Judson for 11 years now, both as a classroom teacher and as the last 5 as a TAG teacher. And I absolutely love serving the students of Judson ISD. I'm also fortunate enough to serve as one of the district's lead GT trainers, getting the fantastic opportunity to work with the teachers across Judson from K to 12 in delivering professional development for them to take back and apply with their GT students. I greatly enjoy getting to help influence instruction for the special population that is so near and dear to my heart, because I myself am a product of GT Education Services from elementary through high school. All this being said, my reason for coming here this evening is in response to the board's most recent special meeting to discuss the budget for next year. I am well aware of the plight of our district and many others across the city and Texas when it comes to budget deficits and major shortfalls thanks to lack of adequate funding from the state. But in my opinion, cutting from the elementary TAG program is not a good idea. Aside from delivering advanced instruction to my students, assisting the cluster teachers on my campus with differentiating lessons, testing new TAG referrals, and meeting with parents to discuss the academic and social-emotional growth of their children, one of my primary duties as an elementary school TAG teacher is to advocate for my students. Cutting any of the positions across the district would drastically change the way my students would receive services, the way any students across the district would receive services, and unfortunately, that would be in a negative way, and that is something I cannot stand by. We wouldn't dream of cutting services for students in the dyslexia program, bilingual program, ESL program, or special education programs because it's not what is in the best interest of those students. Not to mention that such programs also receive federal funding that save them from such cuts. If we wouldn't make those cuts for those special student populations, why would we think it was okay to cut from the elementary GT population? Elementary is the foundation for all other learning. I'm reminded of such by all of the secondary teachers in my PD trainings every summer. Wouldn't we want to build our house, our educational foundation, and build that strongest foundation at the elementary level? I know y'all have a hard task in front of you, and I do not envy your position whatsoever, but I just definitely would like you to take into consideration the effect that that has on our students, not only elementary, but throughout the years as they continue to grow through Judson. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Lydia Panvini, and the agenda item is class size increases.
Excuse me. Good evening. My name is Lydia Panvini, and I teach kindergarten. And recently, it was brought to my attention that there has been an approval based on a recommendation from HR to increase our class sizes up to 24. And I highly discourage this. There is a lot of research from the Center of Public Education, as well as basically any large university that has done any kind of research into class size has found again and again that lower class sizes have a significant impact on student achievement. And specifically 18 students is ideal for elementary school, particularly primary. There's a longitudinal study out of Tennessee called Project STAR, and they found that these students who were taught in smaller classes did better in standardized testing, were more likely to graduate high school, were more likely to graduate college, and then stayed in those communities and increased the revenue of the school district eventually. Because I know education is a business, and I know that there is some tough calls. Now, personally, I'm at one of the newer schools, and I'm very, very blessed to have a large, comfortable classroom. And my school is identical to the two coming and another one on our campus. And I can tell you that my 21st student was too many bodies in my room. I was forced, I can't fit any more furniture in my room. I put one more child at the end of a table, and they can't do their work at the table. I'm having to put a student on the floor or at my desk or somewhere else because we simply don't have the space to adequately teach. You know, we know that best practice involves differentiating education for all students and meeting the needs of the individual child. And when we have more students, we are not able to do that effectively. We're not able to effectively communicate with parents of 24 students at a time, and we're not able to meet their individual needs. So I do ask that, that you do not approve larger class sizes for the primary grades and for elementary school. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Chris Van, is it Heerd? And the agenda item is TAG program for elementary schools.
It's Chris Van Herdy, but nice try. Board of Trustees, I come to you to talk about the TAG program, how much of a value it is to my daughters and my family. Currently, I have one daughter at Olympia Elementary. The TAG teacher there is wonderful, has added so much to my daughter's education. I have a middle schooler now, and she is extremely successful because of the basis that she had in TAG. Originally, it was a once a week thing, once every other week, and my daughter enjoyed it, but when it changed to bi-weekly, the level of engagement soared through the roof, the creativity that was unlocked, amazing. I can't say enough about that program. We feel so strongly about it, my wife and I, that we would consider moving if it gets cut or changed. If the level of service drops, that's how serious we are. I didn't tell her this, but I would actually pay more taxes to maintain that level of service. And that's probably not very popular with the crowd, but that's how strongly I feel about it. So what I wanted to say mostly is that I do know that there's a scarcity of funds. I understand that. I manage projects all day long, and there's always a scarcity. I just ask that you take into consideration the needs of all students when you're doing the decisions that you are doing. Finally, I don't want this to go like we did with art. We lost art in elementary schools. That's a hole. My wife volunteers at the school to try to engage the students in art because of that problem. So I don't want that to happen again. So thank you for your attention. I appreciate your time and all of your efforts.
Thank you. Next, we have Tanya Granados. Agenda item is tag program.
Good evening. I'm a mother of 5. I have 5 children that attend Judson ISD. My oldest is in Judson Middle School, and then my latter 4 are at Coronado Village Elementary School. My daughter attends TAG with one of the teachers that spoke earlier. And I just want to add my voice to the many others that have spoken already, that this program is very important to my daughter's life, but also to her classmates, the people that she gets to interact with on a weekly basis. The projects that she's able to accomplish, to be part of, are things that she wouldn't be able to do in a regular classroom. I talked to her this evening as to what has been the benefit to her this year, and they've had the opportunity to meet with the Apple unit on our campus and take time one-on-one with the children there and get to know their abilities and their strengths. And as their project for this year, they're going to educate the rest of their school. Now that's something that's so valuable that is only going to grow and change them as they become adults. And those are the type of people that we want to lead our future. People that are instructed when they're young to value education, to engage with those around them, and to see the benefit of everybody. I love the TAG program. I love the teachers that put forth so much of their time for my children. Thank you very much for hearing my voice tonight, and I hope that you keep tag on a weekly basis for my child. Thank you.
Next, we have Cindy Duran, and the agenda item to be discussed is tag.
Thank you, members of the board. Bear with me. I don't want to repeat too much of what has already been said. I do want to emphasize that the TAG program at Judson is more than a weekly pull-out class for our students. It is support for differentiation in the regular classroom. It is more than that. It's emotional support for children who have significant learning differences from their peers, just as valid learning differences as special education and dyslexia. One of my 2 children that are in TAG in Judson is dyslexic. I think one of the primary goals of a TAG program has to be to light within these students the fire for self-directed learning, because they are always going to learn differently than those around them. I don't think that if you pass up that opportunity to light that fire at the elementary level, that you can start it at middle school. My oldest child is now in middle school. She has been through the TAG program. She's worked with 2 of our fine TAG Judson teachers in elementary school. She's been through the program both weekly and every other week. Every other week's not adequate. My older child, as a middle schooler, brought home information for the prep program and said, can I do this? If you're not familiar with prep, that's 7 weeks in the summer of advanced mathematics and science that I can't help you with. I said, you realize you're not going to be able to do gymnastics if you do this program? And she said, I still want to do it. She just got her acceptance letter for her second year in prep. She is a member of the first LCATS cohort. That's 30 students chosen from first-year prep students who are working in a NASA analog multi-year project. Judson ISD has 6 of those students out of 30, along with students from Keystone and other private schools and other top academic schools. You don't get there without having a solid elementary tag program. So I know you have to make tough decisions as far as the budget. The tag program is valuable to this district. It is valuable to these children beyond elementary level. And I just ask that you consider that when you're making your budget decisions. Thank you.
We'll now move on to item number 4, reorganization of the Judson ISD board leadership. Dr. Montoya.
Members of the board, at this time, for the reorganization of the Judson ISD board leadership, I am soliciting nominations for the office of president. Do we have anyone that would like to nominate someone for the office of president of this board?
I'd like to nominate Renee Pichel for president.
Okay, I'm sorry. Ms. Canoyer, she was first. Go ahead, Ms. Canoyer.
I nominate Melinda Salinas.
Okay, Melinda Salinas, will you accept that nomination? Yes. Okay, now we'll open it to any other nominations.
I already made my nomination. You called for nominations and I made one.
Okay, well, we have, again, members of the board, two names, Renee Pichel and Dr. Melinda Salinas. So I will ask with Melinda Salinas, if you will raise your right hand so we can count all those in favor of having her as the board president. Please raise your right hand. 4. All those in favor of Renee Pichel for president, please raise your right hand. 2. So again, at this point, the board president will continue with Dr. Melinda Salinas. Congratulations, Madam President, and I turn the meeting back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Montoya and fellow board members. We'll now take, let me go to discussion again. We will now take nominations for vice president.
I nominate Renee
Mr. LaFoyle.
Pichel.
Go ahead.
I'm first on it, yeah.
Yes,
I
you're
nominate Renee Pichel for vice president.
Have a nomination for Renee Pichel. Are there any other nominations? Okay, if you'll raise your right hand for Renee Pichel, vice president. Congratulations, Ms. Pichel. Thank you. We will now proceed for nominations for secretary. Okay, I was going to push it, but go ahead. Mr. LaFoyle.
I nominate Jose Macias for secretary.
Okay, we have a nomination for
okay,
Mr.
good.
Macias. Are there any other nominations for secretary? We'll go ahead and vote. Raise your right hand for Mr. Macias. Congratulations, Mr. Macias. We will move on to consent items. Please let me know if you'd like to pull an item. 5A, consider and take action regarding approving board minutes from the regular meeting held on April 19th and the minutes from the special meeting held on April 30th, 2018. 5B, consider and take action regarding approving monthly financial information as of April 30th, 2018. 5C, consider and take action regarding approving expenditures equal to or greater than $50,000. 5D, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the engineering firms for services related to the testing and balancing phase of the construction of Wortham Oaks Elementary School.
Pull.
5E, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the submittals for requests for proposal 18-15, water-based fire protection repair services.
Pull.
5F, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the submittals for requests for proposal 18-20, fire alarm system testing and inspection services.
Pull.
5G, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the submittals for requests for proposal 18-23, digital video projector project elementary school, or ES.
Pull.
5H, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the submittals for the request for competitive sealed proposal 18-24, Kitty Hawk Middle School renovations.
Pull.
5I, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the submittals for request for proposal 18-25, annual financial audit services. 5J, consider and take action to waive penalty and interest on property tax payments. 5K, consider and take action regarding approving an interlocal agreement with Houston Independent School District to provide billing and claim services for the school health and related services SHARS program. 5L, consider and take action regarding approving a proposed plat number 170333 for the Canoe Elementary School located in the Wortham Oaks subdivision, Wortham Oaks Elementary School. 5M, consider and take action regarding approving the Judson Early College Academy school calendar for the 18-19 school year. 5N, consider and take action regarding approving the University of Texas at Austin On-Ramps Cooperative Partnership Agreement as a dual enrollment partner for Wagner T-STEM, Wagner High School, Judson High School, Veterans Memorial High School, and Judson Early College Academy. 5.0, consider and take action regarding approving 1718 Texas Education Waiver Application for timeline for accelerated instruction waiver. 5P, consider and take action regarding approving the second reading of BBBA local elections conducting elections. 5Q, consider and take action regarding approving secondary student fees and CTE-related student fees for the 2018-19 school year. 5R, consider and take action regarding approving a resolution for an alternative graduation requirement for students who enter into the 9th grade prior to the 2011-12 school year. 5S, consider and take action regarding approving a gas line right-of-way agreement with the City of San Antonio. Okay, well, we will proceed to vote. We're voting on items 5A, B, C, I, L, M, O, P, Q, R, S.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. Motion, Ms. Pichelle, second, Mr. LaFoille. You'll proceed to vote, please. Okay, motions carry 6-0. We'll move on to 5D. Consider and take action regarding approving the rankings of the engineering firms for services related to the testing and balancing phase of the construction of Wortham Oaks Elementary School.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Macias, motion by Mr. Macias, second by Mr. LaFoille, and Mr. Macias, this is your item.
Yes, actually, the items I pulled are all sort of related, but I mean, naturally, we have to pull them all and have the questions pertaining to each agenda item. But the question I had regarding this particular item was that we have in our memorandum from Mr. Elizondo that the request for qualifications for engineering services was completed in 2016 in order to develop a pool of highly qualified providers. It said a pool of 49 firms responded with statements of qualifications. My only question on this one is that we have one firm here, so I don't know if there was 3 or if it fell off, so I just needed some understanding on if I'm reading something wrong with that 49 and what the next steps were like.
Go ahead, Mr. Elizondo.
Thank you. Yes, sir. There were 49 respondents to this particular RFP, RFQ, and they do all types of engineering services. There was only one firm, though, that does this particular type of engineering services, the balancing of our systems that were required. I did have a conversation with our purchasing director, though, and he is issuing another RFP specifically for this to see if there's anybody in the field that's entered the San Antonio area or near San Antonio area, so that when we procure these services for the next couple of projects that we're going to be doing, that hopefully we'll have a little bit more selection of firms that we can evaluate.
I can appreciate that. So only one out of the 49 actually met the specific criteria for this request? Is that
Yes, sir, that's
what I
the only
understand?
firm that provides these types of services. Some of the other ones checked that category, but when our facilities planning department checked with them, they were going to hire this particular firm. They were going to subcontract this particular firm to come do the work.
Okay, all right, well, I appreciate that clarity, and obviously, we like to have competition, so, you know, we need to find someone else that does this work, but thank you.
Is there any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote.
Motion? Oh, we don't need to, huh?
We already did. We did motion. Okay, motion carries 6-0. 5E, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of submittals for request for proposal 18-15 water-based fire protection repair services. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second. Motion, Mr. Macias, second. Sorry, motion, Mr. Macias, second, Ms. Canoyer, and Mr. Macias.
Yes, so this particular proposal, I believe that the gap between the vendor that was selected versus the other two was high. I'm trying to figure out where the dollar, I have a lot of notes here, but this is just a concern I had, that it was so low that I'm wondering what the review process look like to ensure that we do have the quality that we need. I mean, it's almost 2/3 lower. I mean, it's considerably lower. So I just want some background on what that looks like.
Go ahead again, Mr. Elizondo, with this one.
Yes, sir. Yes, you're correct, Mr. Macias. The rate of pay that this particular firm offered was $75 per hour versus the other ones that were $127.50 per hour. We also were concerned about that. We did, the Facilities Planning Department, which is the team that led this particular evaluation, contacted the other clients that this particular vendor had offered services to, and they expressed that they were very satisfied with their services, that they had done a really good job. And so we felt like we would, you know, we would give them a shot and see how they did. If we're not happy after the very first time we use them, then we will definitely come back and say we're not going to use them again. We'll come back to the board and go a different direction. But for now, based on the references they received, they're very capable of doing this work, and they do quality work.
And just so, procurement's always been a question for me in terms of our processes to have a better understanding, and you've done a phenomenal job with that. What does a team look like when you have a team that makes that assessment? I know we went through this exercise with the benefits last year, but what does that team look like on a typical process like this?
Sure. It really depends. First of all, it depends on who the department is that's requesting it. This one was, I think, a maintenance department. So there it's usually going to be the director of the maintenance department that gets involved with it. One or two of the supervisors will review it as well. On some of them, depending on how complicated they are, we will invite engineers or architects to help us evaluate those particular proposals if we're not familiar with maybe some of the subcontractors, because architects work with subcontractors throughout the entire county, and we're not familiar with all of them because maybe we haven't worked with them in the past, so we'll visit with those architects to see what experiences they've had with them in other projects with other school districts. So it really depends on what it is that we're evaluating to see what type of expertise we're looking for. When we did the audit one, for instance, then we used the folks in our department because we're very familiar with that. So I did that one, for instance, in my director of accounting, and we had another accountant who works with the auditors. But it just really depends on each individual RFP as to who formulates that team. The director of purchasing gets involved as far as giving them direction, providing them the score sheets and tabulations so that they know kind of to make sure that everybody's being graded or evaluated consistently and fairly across the board. So I'm not sure if that answers your question specifically, but we try to cover as many people as we can to make sure that we...
A couple of questions.
Sure.
Who was the team that evaluated this, just so that I'm clear on how broad that team looked like? And secondly, as you're getting that information, do we have a policy or sort of a rubric in which we follow in the procurement process that stipulates this is a scenario, this is who we're going to identify as team leads on this? Do we have that literature?
It's not a rubric. We don't have it written as a rubric.
Okay.
We do have, it goes typically to the individual who's requesting it. In this case, it was the maintenance department. So Mr. Yockin's here to speak to you that.
Sure,
You have
and
questions about who's on
that's
the team.
probably one of the weaknesses, that there is not a standard. So then it gets kind of loose in terms of how it's approached. And I know the intent is to find experts in that area to do the evaluation, but it should be standardized in some way. It's just my opinion. But if you could address what that looked like.
The evaluation was done by me, which is the Director of Maintenance, Tom Walker, which is our supervisor, and the individual that does all of the water-based testing, which is Jason Leroy. So us three gathered in the room and did all the evaluation.
All right, well, that does explain it. And again, it's just, the variance is just enormous in terms of, so I had a question. I appreciate that. Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Motion carries 6-0. 5F, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of submittals for request for proposal 18-20 fire alarm system testing and inspection services. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Macias, second, Mr. LaFoille, and Mr. Macias.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, these are all sort of related, but we can get through them pretty quickly. This particular one, the range wasn't as bad, but we did have the highest vendor in the tabulation summary at $119,000 for this expense, and the lowest was $40,000. And if the previous agenda item, the lowest one clearly was the #1 ranking, but it looks like we're identifying again the lowest one here at $40,000. So you have a high end of 119, a low end of 40, and you have a couple in the middle at 52. So just again, just my assurance, so I feel better that we are looking at the quality of the product and the vendor when it's so low. I mean, 119 to 40 is again big, but the 52 to 40 is just slightly different. So just talk to me a little bit about
And
that.
again, members of the board, this is a process to inspect our fire alarm systems that we do every year. But go ahead, Mr. Elizondo, and answer that one.
You know, it's the same thing, Mr. Macias. You know, we solicit bids from different people, and it just depends on what they want to charge. Some of them, you know, may not need the work, and they charge a little bit higher, and they, you know, they're just grateful if they get it. Others are really needing the work, so they want to charge a little bit lower. Again, the reputation, the references were checked. They all came back fine. And it's just like anything we do. We're not tied to these companies. If they come and we call them to do some work for us and we're not happy with the work they do, then we tell them thank you, and, you know, we put it back out and come back to the board, and we try somebody else if that doesn't work. But again, it goes, when we've never used a company before, and let me check, Allied, yeah, I was gonna ask. Are they the current ones that we're using now, Mr. Yockin? And they're the company that we're currently using now, so they're happy with their services, so they feel like, you know, they're the lowest, and we're using them, and they're doing a good job for us, so we're gonna continue to use them.
One thing that I will tell you that's always very tricky is that there's always going to be someone that's upset that they didn't get the business with Judson. And they're going to say, something sounds fixed. I'm sure nothing was fixed, but I would like to ensure that we have strong standards that we're following. And so that's again why I'm asking these questions. And I noticed that the detailed scorecard varied. Are there varying scorecards, or are they all the same?
No, they are different. They're tailored to each particular, some of them you'll see the same if they're kind of similar types of purchases, but they are tailored to the specific purchases that we're doing.
And you did mention about if we're dissatisfied with their service, that we can go ahead and cut it. But this memorandum does state that this is a 3-year period in terms of options. So let's just say, for example, we're dissatisfied with their service midway through that first year. Are we locked in for that balance of the year, or do we have to, I mean, I want to understand how that
Right,
works.
no, there are, in the request for proposal, there are terms and conditions, and it tells you that if we become unsatisfied for any reason or no reason at all during the agreement, that we can terminate it at any time.
Okay, so it's not binding that we have to use their services for a year and,
No, sir.
and work through that. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Pichelle.
Thank you, Dr. Salinas. Dr. Montoya,
It says here that they are to do the alarm system test and inspection. So those are the same people, once that system is put in, they also do the inspection?
That's correct.
Well,
That's
that's,
correct.
okay. So that'll be good. So that when they're doing their inspection, however far down the road that they do it, if the inspection doesn't pass, that is a good indicator that we do not want to contract with them again.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Motion carries 6-0. 5G, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the submittals for request for proposal 18-23, digital video project, projector project E-ES. Motion. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion. Second, Ms. Pichelle and Mr. Macias.
Actually, I don't have any questions. They were, the question was answered actually earlier, so I'm fine with this one.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Motion carries 6-0. We'll move on to 5H. Consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the submittals for the request for competitive sealed proposal 18-24 Kitty Hawk Middle School renovations. Do I have a motion? Motion, Mr. Macias, second, Mr. LaFoille, and Mr. Macias.
Yeah, my question on this one was the different ranking system or scorecard, but you mentioned that. So how many different detailed scorecards do we have? Is it numerous? Is it 2 or 3?
No, it is more than that. Gosh, I don't want to give you the wrong number. There's probably, that I can think of right off the top of my head, there's probably at least 5 that are different. There may be a few more than that, but again, they're tailored to that specific request. When we advertise it, we tell them this particular category is going to be X number of points. And now the criteria, the 9 criteria that are in those are state required. So they're going to always appear in there, but the number of points we assign to each particular one is up to the district. And that just, again, is based on this particular one, do we want to weigh the price really high? Or do we want to weigh the reputation and other projects they've worked on higher? You know, that's up to us a little bit. But we tell them when we do the RFPs, in the actual advertisement, we tell them what categories we're going to be ranking them on and how many points are going to be assigned for each one of those categories, so they know in advance how important the price is going to be in their submittal or how important their quality of goods are going to be in the submittal, to just make sure that they're aware of that as they're bidding.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Motion carries 6-0. 5K, consider and take action regarding approving the interlocal agreement with the Houston Independent School District to provide billing and claim services for the School Health and Related Services SHARS program. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Ms. Pichelle, second, Ms. Kenoyer and Ms. Pichelle.
Dr. Montoya, I have one question. Why is it Houston? Is there no firm in San Antonio that does that?
There are some other firms, but in all honesty, Houston historically has been used by most school districts, and Judson has been very successful because they're able to recover funding at one of the higher levels, because that's really what you want to do for the reason you do these things. But I don't know, Mr. Elizondo, if you want to go further than that.
What you said is accurate. We have used, I'm trying to think of the number of different ones. We've used LaPorte ISD at one time. We used TASB. Houston is the latest one that we're using, and we use them. And Dr. Montoya is right. I mean, they do a lot of training. They come out and do a lot of assistance to make sure that we're getting the highest amount of, that we're submitting the correct information to try to generate the most amount of refunds or reimbursements that we can get for this particular program. We're very pleased with what they've done for us, and so we do, and he's right, there are, and as you said, there are numerous firms that do this, but they have a really good reputation, and we're happy with what we've been doing with them. They did, when we changed from our past vendor to this vendor, we saw a significant increase in the amount of reimbursements that we received.
And how long have we been doing business with Houston ISD?
I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe, something like that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Motion carries 6-0. 5N, consider and take action regarding approving the University of Texas at Austin On-Ramps Cooperative Partnership Agreement as a dual enrollment partner for Wagner T-STEM, Wagner High School, Judson High School, Veterans Memorial High School, and Judson Early College Academy. Do I have a motion?
Motion. Second.
Motion, Mr. LaFoille, second, Ms. Pichelle. And Ms. Pichelle.
So, Dr. Montoya, I'd like to know, what is the cost of this on-ramps to the district, please?
Okay, again, to Dr. Cantu, I know you've been working directly on that one, so go ahead and proceed.
Yes, the only cost, this is probably the most cost-efficient manner to deliver dual credit instruction to our students, because we will be paying the transportation cost for the teachers to attend a 2-week institute at UT Austin, and it is at the cost of $400 per teacher.
That is the only cost, is transportation?
Yes, ma'am, they cover the rest of the cost.
The on-ramps covers the rest of the cost to every student that enrolls in the program.
Yes, ma'am. The note that you have there on page 110 on the impact, it talks about the 84th legislative session. They did appropriate some funding for this, so this is the reason that it is at a very low cost to the district.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Macias.
Yeah, I had was real proud of the fact that we had that option. I would like it to be more interactive. It's online, right? And so that's always a concern in terms of reaching equity throughout the district for this program. But my other question is, do we anticipate this potentially going away next legislative session? Is that something that we have a forecast? And even if we don't know, because we don't have a crystal ball, what would then be our contingency to continue to offer some of these, this type of program? Have we thought a little bit about that?
Once the teachers receive the training, they will continue to work with us. So we do have an urgency, and we are including as many teachers as we can this summer so that we can continue that training. The teachers are going to be working side by side with a UT professor. They deliver the higher ed curriculum, and the high school teacher delivers the high school curriculum. So if the funding were to go away, our hope is that we do have the teachers already trained. We do not believe that this funding will go away because they are working directly with TEA. Of course, there's no guarantees, but we are prepared that we will continue with the training that the teachers have received.
I do think it'll be interesting, thank you, Dr. Cantu, to see again how we're able to reach as many students as possible and where those barriers exist if we're not able to reach them. But thank you.
If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Motion carries 6-0. I will be reading the resolution for item R. Consider and take action regarding approving a resolution for an alternative graduation requirement for students who entered into the 9th grade prior to the 2011-2012 school year. Whereas pursuant to Education Code Sections 28.02541, a district may graduate and give a high school diploma under alternative requirements to individuals who entered the 9th grade before the 2011-2012 school year and have met all applicable graduation requirements for the year they entered 9th grade, but have not performed satisfactorily on an assessment instrument or part of an assessment instrument required for graduation. Whereas in accordance with the 19 Administrative Code Section 74.1027, a district may permit eligible individuals to qualify to graduate and receive a high school diploma if they meet the alternative requirements under 19 Administrative Code Section 74.1027C or board-approved local alternative requirements under 19 Administrative Code Section 74.1027D that allow an individual to demonstrate proficiency in the content related to the examination for which the individual did not perform satisfactorily. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Judson Independent School District by adoption of this resolution, approves the following local alternative requirements developed by the district that will allow eligible individuals to graduate and receive a high school diploma as authorized under Education Code Section 28.02541. Be it further resolved, an individual may graduate under the local alternative requirements if the district has made its determination that the individual has met the requirements by September 1st, 2019. To be eligible to graduate and receive a high school diploma under these provisions, an eligible individual must demonstrate proficiency to the satisfaction of a local graduation committee in the content areas related to the assessments on which the individual has not performed satisfactorily. Proficiency shall be established through one or more of the following factors. 1. The individual's grade in each course in the subject areas applicable to the assessments on which the individual has not performed satisfactorily. 2. The individual's score on each assessment instrument on which the individual has failed to perform satisfactorily. 3. The individual's performance on any projects or work samples in the subject areas applicable to the assessments on which the individual has not performed satisfactorily, including any projects or work samples identified and assigned by the local graduation committee to be completed by the individual. 4. The individual's participation in offered remediation. 5. The individual's school attendance rate. 6. The individual's transcript of coursework. 7. The individual's completion of career and technical education program courses. Or 8. Any other academic, work, or life experience determined to be relevant by the local graduation committee. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the Great Seal of the Judson Independent School District, this 17th day of May, 2018. Oh, that was a lot. Okay.
But I'm glad we did it.
Yes, I'm very glad we did it. 6A, consider and take possible action regarding approval of the contract renewal list for teachers and district office administrators for the 2018-19 school year will be discussed and considered in closed session. 6B, consider and take possible action regarding approving of the personnel report and updates, including new hires, resignations, and administrative appointments, principals, will also be discussed and considered in closed session. 6C, consider and take possible action regarding program review presentations at future board meetings. Mr. LaFoille. Oh, I'm sorry, motion.
Motion.
Motion, Ms. Pichelle. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. LaFoille. Mr. LaFoille.
I put this on there because I believe there's some board members that would like to hear some of the things that our directors have to say about their different programs. I myself would like to hear a little bit about athletics, because I believe there's a lot of things in athletics need to be changed. So that's the reason I put it on there. I mean, I don't know if anybody else has something they'd like to hear about. They are. Speak up.
Oh, Mr. Macias.
Thank you, Mr. LaFoille, for putting it on the agenda. Right now, you know, it's pretty late in the game now for our program review. But I will say that I do concur with Mr. LaFoille. The necessity to have a program review is very important. It is the board's opportunity to evaluate programs a little bit more in detail to determine where expenditures are going and how resources are being utilized. This year, not having a program review concerned me a bit. But at this late game, it's hard to have that now. We have superintendent interviews about to start, and we still have budget meetings. And Mr. Elizondo's done a phenomenal job with our budget, so we're not in dire straits like some of the other school districts, and we still have a deficit. But I do concur. My only other concern and I will, of course, remind my colleagues next year when we're going through this cycle, is that there's that standard of excellence. Once we kind of put it behind us like we don't need one, are we going to say the same thing next year? And so if we're going to get to that bar, that excellence level, it is something that we should be doing annually. And I know that we do have some of the departments report out during the year to kind of space things, but there's nothing like an end our March timeframe program review to really grasp where a program is going. And so I would echo Mr. LaFoille's concern that we do have that. And I know that Dr. Salinas has always mentioned if we want, and Dr. Montoya is very supportive of this, review a department, just let them know and we'll get that information. So it's not an attempt not to see things, but program reviews are pretty cool. That's when you roll your sleeves up, you show up in shorts, you're there all day Saturday, and you really get a chance to see what these programs look like. So that's all I have to say.
Ms. Pichon.
Dr. Montoya, I wanted to address Mr. Macias, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Mr. Macias, do you think that a solution could be doing program reviews intermittently during board meetings would be sufficient?
I know that we've done that, but a lot of times we have heavy agendas, and we try not to keep our administration late. I know we can stay here till midnight every day, but it's tough. The reason why I say that is because the continuity of looking at a department like, say, curriculum, there's no way we could get all of curriculum and instruction and have it fit into a meeting. It would have to be pieces of that. And so as we're looking at a department, we want to see the whole thing. At least I would like to see how it is all working, and have that understanding to have dialogue back and forth in a much more relaxed environment than at a formal board meeting. That's why I'd be an advocate for having these offline.
And maybe we can do that, but not have every department all at one time. How about if you prefer a Saturday and we were to agree to a Saturday, certain departments would give us their reviews on one Saturday 1 month, and then another Saturday another month, and until we got through all of the departments that we wanted to listen to.
I certainly would be agreeable to that. But unfortunately, this year we're kind of it's kind of tough at this point. So you know, we can all ask questions of Dr. Montoya and administration regarding curriculum or any other area, athletics, as a matter of fact. But just the fact that this would have been a better positioned activity in March, and we're in May, it's just going to be difficult. So just again, my caution is let's not lose sight of what our opportunities are, and that we do not diminish our opportunity to review programs as board members.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Well, the motion says presentations at future board meetings. That's how unless somebody wants to amend the motion.
No, I don't need this thing. I'll blast you out of the place if I use it.
So are we going to amend it, or what would you like to do?
I think we just slide it off. Really, it's way too late to start doing any of this stuff. Someone should have thought of this about 3 months ago. So when we did all these money for these people and everything else, you know, hey, I'd like to know where it's going. And I don't like to have to sit in a meeting at a later date and say, oh, how come they're spending that? How come they're doing this? That's my take.
So do you want to pull it, or do you want to how do you want to amend it?
Might as well pull it then, because it ain't going to go anywhere. I'll tell you next year, I'll make sure it gets in there.
Well, that's what I say. It's been positive. The dialogue has been positive. So there's definitely some good things coming out of it.
Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
I think maybe what we can do is direct the superintendent, or that next year part of our budget procedure should include certain departments that we feel are vital to looking at where we spend our money as part of the budget process, and that should happen at the beginning of the budget cycle. And I think that if it's in the minutes and we amend the motion to something like that,
And
or bring it back next month.
We can always bring it, exactly. We can always bring it back any month that we want to.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to pull now and wait till after July, and then
And I'm sorry, but I would say this. I have to say this, I'm sorry to do this, but it was in our calendar for our budget meetings. The board members were asked. So we've been doing this for a long time. I just want to make sure that the audience or anybody listening doesn't think, oh, you know, these people don't want to. It's on, my microphone's on. It's always been something we've been doing for a long time, and it was in the plan for this year as well. We had a date set up, and then we were told not to present it, so we didn't. So I just want to make sure that everybody's really clear about that, especially in the community, that it is part of our normal budget process.
Thank you. So are we pulling it? No action? Okay. 7A, Superintendent Report, Construction Update.
Again, members of the board, this is one that we do every month, kind of updating you on some the status of bond activity in the district. Dr. Fields?
Yes, sir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On your construction reports for the month of May, you'll see that we've started to add Phase 2 and 3 from the insurance claims, so you'll start seeing more of those updates. From the first phase, we still have Eloff at 97% on the roof, Hopkins at 93%, Pashal at 85%, Park Village at 80%, and Wagner at 85%. Those percentages started to slow down a little bit due to testing, so we had the construction teams move away until all that's been completed. But Escondido is currently at 84%, Wortham Oaks is at 38%. Both of them are on time and under budget, and we're moving along famously. And then that's all I have. I stand ready for any questions you may have about the construction.
Ms. Pichelle.
Thank you, Dr. Salinas. Dr. Montoya, may I address Dr. Fields?
Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Dr. Fields, please give clarity on the misunderstanding of the work to be done at Kirby Middle versus Kitty Hawk Middle,
Yes, ma'am.
and the timeline.
Well, both of them are renovation projects. I don't want to give an exact amount to the project because it's still out for bidding to the contractors. But what we've done is we've gone through the negotiation phase with the architects, and now we're at putting it out for bid for the contractors. One of the things that we had to do with Kitty Hawk is we're going to have to set up temporary electricity to the campus and pull the electricity from the campus. If you've ever been to Kitty Hawk, you'll know that most of their electricity lines run above the school and not below. And some of them are interconnected. So building 400's electricity may be connected to building 500's electricity. We can't move forward with construction and then eliminate a building and then cut off electricity. So we have to create new electrical easements that all go to the electrical grid. And then we can move forward with the renovation on that campus, keeping safety in mind. But this month, we're ready to start, and you've seen the contractor we're recommending for Kitty Hawk. Next month, we had a meeting, I believe it was earlier this week, with all of the construction teams that were interested in the Kirby bid. About 50 or more personnel showed up in terms of teams of contractors, and they're preparing to put forth a contracting bid for Kirby. We'll bring that to the board in June, and then we would start where our plan for Kitty Hawk is to start at the end of June, maybe the beginning of July, with that electrical easement and hookups and temporary power. And we had to do that. If it's going to be out from 3 weeks to a month, we need to do that during the summertime. That's not something that you can do while school's in session.
You mean the electricity?
Yes, ma'am. So that's why we wanted to hurry and do it now, so now we can move forward once we create those easements and do the renovations throughout the year. But Kirby will start the month after. So our plan for Kirby is to start around the beginning of August. Both of them will end at the same time. So both projects should be completed in no more than 2 years. But this will be extensive renovation on both campuses that last some time.
But it is not going to be 2 years before Kirby starts.
No, ma'am, not at all, not at all, not at all. We will start in the beginning of August with Kirby. Yes, ma'am. And we'll also be moving in on those campuses. We're going to kind of build a plane as we taxi down the runway. Once the gym is up, we'll be able to use that and we can move on to the academic building. We're not going to wait until all of it's completed before we cut the ribbon and start moving into the areas.
And again, both schools will be done at the same time.
Definitely. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Macias.
Yes, Dr. Montoya, I do have a few questions regarding the bond projects.
Go ahead.
I noticed on our budgets for construction projects that we do have interest earned as of 4/30/18 for our bond projects. In fact, $89,235 for the 2013 bond election interest earned. Is that interest that's just sitting in an account? And if so, what bond projects do we allocate that to, or what do we?
Go ahead, Mr. Elizondo.
Yes, sir. And I'm sorry, I'm not looking at that particular page, but what happens with these bond projects, we have monies for 2013, 2016, and 2017, and they're all different funds, and they're all authorized by the voters for specific purposes. And so those interests are, they stay within that particular bond proposition. And so even like in 2016, when we did 2 bond propositions, when we earn interest monthly, we take a prorated amount of how much belongs to Proposition 1 and Proposition 2, and it's held there. And as the projects continue on, then we'll use that interest for things that are not really capital, like for instance, when we're buying furniture, we don't, because it's things that are not going to be, we're not going to have it, for 30 years or 40 years. I mean, it may still be here that long, but the idea is not to have it that long. We usually depreciate that over the first 3 to 5 years. So we'll use some of that interest for that, but what ends up happening at the very end is that there will be interest that was not used for anything that will sit there, and then we will come back and either we'll use it for another project. We'll come back to the board and say, hey, we have X amount of money. We finished all the projects we've told the voters about. All of our promises have been met, and now we have X amount of money. Not only interest money, but if we also have money that was left from the actual projects that we were, that we had budgeted for, we'll say, okay, we'll come back and say possibly we have $4 million left. These are maybe some of the projects we can use it on. What do you think? And the board will say, yes, let's go ahead and use it for these projects. So it stays there. We can't move it to local maintenance or anything. It has to stay in those bond propositions. And then we will use it for bond projects in the future.
Yeah, and I'm aware we're locked. Once we have voters approve those, I understand that it needs to stay there. But when you're looking at $89,000 for the 2013 bond, and then you have $288,000 for the one in 2017, and then you have it looks like interest earned on our 2016 $435 million for the restructuring. We have $1.9 million sitting in there. So I would like to ensure that we obviously do what we need to for the voters that have approved the bond, but that we don't, that we move as quickly, because we have facilities that have needs, and that there's a process that we're addressing that, and not just, hey, we got money in this interest-bearing thing here. So it's good to hear, but who is responsible? Is that Dr. Fields? Is Dr. Montoya? Who's the one that monitors that and gets to a point where, okay, we're 99.9% done or 100% done, and we have this much interest? What do we do?
We do it collaboratively. I mean, as far as who monitors how much money is in there, we have a bond accountant that does that, that works in our department. We monitor it, I monitor it, our director of accounting does, facilities, Dr. Fields, we all do it. We all kind of look at it, and when we're done with everything in the projects and we say, hey, we're done, we're finished with these projects, now what do we do with this extra, with what's left over? Hopefully there's money left over. We don't have to come back to the board and say we're short, because that's always the goal. But then we come back and say, okay, what can we do with it? So we all look at that money, and we know it's there. We just don't allocate it or spend it.
Do we have a continual process as a need assessment throughout we do that around the bond time, where we go out and find out what the issues are, but do we have something intermediate where we're also continuously trying to figure out what the needs are on campuses across the district?
Oh, definitely. All the time. Yes, there are even projects. Yeah. And I mean, as you know, when we do the bond projects, first of all, we prioritize the list,
Sure.
right? So the things that are not done because there isn't just enough money to go around. So when we get to that point, we'll ask the schools, the campuses and everybody to kind of have input into, okay, what's the priority now? And then we can delegate or we can distribute those funds appropriately once we get to that point.
And looking at thank you, this is another question. Looking at the bond projects for the infrastructure improvement, the $137 million one that we passed in 2016, when I look at the report as of April 30th, it looks like $12 million has been spent, $124 million is still a balance. So is it that we have current jobs going that we just haven't paid out? I just want to get an understanding of how we're utilizing this infrastructure improvement bond.
I'm sorry, Mr. Macias, what bond are you looking at?
I'm looking at the 2016 bond for infrastructure improvements, Proposition 1. It was $137,808,000. And when you look at the reports that say as of April 30th, 2018, we have spent up to date $12 million, but we have $124 million sitting as a balance. Now, this was a May 2016 proposition. We're now in May of 2018. So I want to make sure that, I know we're not sitting, or at least I hope we're not sitting on projects that we are moving, because I know Dr. Fields is doing some stuff over there. But I just want to know if the financials that are reflected here are indicative of something, if you can kind of elaborate on that.
You know, the financials are going to show you as we spend the money. We're not, if your concern is that we're trying to keep money in the bank so we're gaining interest.
No,
that's not it.
My concern is that we're not moving quickly enough on these infrastructure improvements so that things continue to deteriorate at these campuses. So I'd like to know that we are moving quickly. And that's where I think we are. But I just wanted to know, when I look at the financials and I'm looking at that difference, it looks like there's $124 million that's just not been utilized 2 years after the bond was passed. So I just want to get some understanding on that.
And I mean, that's correct. What you're seeing here, what you're not seeing on that report, and I'm sorry, again, you know, I need to get to that page that you're at so I can tell you. I'm not sure if that's where it's showing if the encumbrances are being showed or not, where the purchase orders are. Okay, here we go. I got it now.
I'm on the financials page number 26, I think. It's this.
It's totally different report. Okay, then that report that I was looking at there. Okay, when you're looking at this particular report, the first column, as you said, is the projects. What we sold in the proposition, plus any interest that's been gained for that proposition is that first column. When the amount to be paid is exactly that. It's what we've actually paid as of this date for those projects. It does not, what it does not show you is what's encumbered. So if we have, for instance, the very first item on here, not a good example. Let me get to one of these at, yeah, if I use Escondido on Proposition 2, it shows that we've only spent $17 million, but we've already let out the contract for $40-something million, or $50 million, or whatever the amount was that we authorized the construction for. It's not showing you the encumbrance amount. So what it's just showing you is a true cash balance. You know, how much have we budgeted? How much cash do we still have in the bank? How much cash has left our books? Not how much we have already earmarked that we've already let out to a general contractor to build this facility.
So essentially, it might be in a receivables pattern.
It is in a purchase order fashion. It's what we call is an encumbrance. There's an encumbrance on our books to say, okay, there's a purchase order to this general contractor or this architect for this particular project, but it doesn't show it on here because this is a cash report. So it's only showing you, like I said, cash in, cash out, not encumbrances that are out there as accruals or anything like that.
And I assume that might have been what we were looking at, but I wanted to make sure that that indeed was the deal. But then where do we receive the reports that show the percentage? I know that Dr. Fields has given reports about where we are on certain projects. The infrastructure one is important because obviously that's repairing a lot of our facilities that had needs. And I just want to make sure that we're on top of getting those things addressed.
Sure.
I can tell you, Mr. Macias, that us attacking the infrastructure bond quickly is one of the things that we receive a lot of feedback on. They feel like we're doing too much too quickly sometimes. I can tell you that we've shotgun out this approach. There's three guys really that work on this. It's Mr. Cedillo, Mr. Moreno, and Steve Noah are the architects that we have available to do all of the $300 million worth of bond-related, well, it's about 265 bond-related issues that we have. Now, we tried to start off with the bigger ones that way because they take the longest to get done. The Kirby's, the Kitty Hawks, the Escondido, the Wortham Oaks, and we're even moving quickly into veterans because that's a $60 million one. We went out for most of the big projects with the modernization and improvement ones, the ones that we've seen on the videos and in your construction manuals, to try and get those done. Like Park Village is going to be $10 million. So we're in the process of, again, negotiating with the architect companies, ready to go out for construction bids on those at a certain point. And then we've also had maintenance coming in and where we need to put tile down in all of the school or some of the smaller activities that they could take on. They've taken those bond monies and gotten in completed projects as well. But we are, I don't like to say this, but we are well on pace to finish in the time that we've allotted ourselves to get this infrastructure bond done within the 5 years from the date that it was approved. So we've given ourselves to 2021, and we are moving at breakneck speed to get it done. I think we're going to have all the projects done way before then. I know they're probably sitting in the back saying, really, but we're moving tremendously faster and simultaneously getting done all of the insurance work as well, because nobody projected that we were going to have to do $40 million worth of insurance corrections to the roofs and AC and HVAC units is when we put out for the bonds.
Well, I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, we'll move on to 7B. First reading of BBB local board member elections, and this item does have a separate memorandum that was provided this evening.
Just very quickly, I remind the board that they had some concerns at a previous board meeting. Mr. Gonzalez, who does our policy operation, did research that with TASB, and that's the information you're getting. It's pretty, basically, the way it's been done is basically, it's nothing fancy being changed or modified or anything. And again, it's a first reading.
If there's no discussion, we'll move on to C, follow-up on comprehensive study on students on grade level and above. Mr. Macias.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to get an update from administration. I know that I sent an email and we've been talking a little bit about all this, but just to get a timeline of when we may see some additional information regarding this comprehensive study.
Okay, again, this is something that the cabinet is working on directly, and they will be reporting back, but I guess, Mrs. Davis, if you give a little update on that.
Yes, sir. We are gathering information from various ERC directors and executive directors, and we will be putting together a full report for the June board meeting. We're looking at metrics, type of programs, initiatives, number of students that are affected, growth, and future recommendations from each director and executive director, as well as our assistant superintendents and deputies.
Now, are we engaging our teachers in the classroom in regards to this assessment to garner some insight on what they believe would be impactful for getting our children at grade level and above? Because, again, the premise is that we're not just doing interventions to get them students to grade level, but that we actually have strategies that are pushing those further up. So I would imagine that directors and ERC directors and all, they could answer those questions, but the actual teachers that are doing the work in the classroom, is that part of the plan?
So the second phase to that, and I've already set up a few meetings with, are the principals, because I'd like to see the difference between the structure and the proposed model from the district versus the campus implementation. So I'm looking at the instructional leaders at each campus. I've already set up several meetings with various principals at random so that we can talk about how each program is being implemented. So they would be able to provide that information on behalf of their teachers.
Okay. I think, Dr. Montoya, that it would be advisable to have physical teachers pulled in, because if we're going to be comprehensive, it needs to be collective of our stakeholders, and our teachers are in the classroom. So I would imagine that that would be a strong group, including RTIs, anyone that has an engagement with student achievement should probably be at least met with in some degree, because they have a role. And if we're going to determine why a child in third grade will enter perhaps not at grade level, what are the pieces looking like to ensure that that child through the year gets to grade level? And then if we have an economically disadvantaged student population that we see now through our study chronically begin each year behind, then that's sort of a strategic opportunity for us to say we need to do something earlier than when we do our evaluation. I think part of the questions that Ms. Barra may have answered did allude to in November, October, that the assessment of a student's grade level is surmised. Is that correct? Am I right in that? I don't.
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Barrow.
So, can you ask your question again, please?
Just when a student comes into the classroom and we're in September, when are they evaluated to at the point of where they are at grade level or where that is?
We do have, and Ms. Davis can answer it as well, but we do have a beginning of year, middle of year, and end of year assessment. So we do have access to where the students are and how much growth they're making in between.
So the beginning of the year meaning September 1st or October 1st?
The first 2 or 3 weeks after school starts.
So the first, a couple of weeks you said, a couple of
Yes.
days? Okay, so it's done quickly. So do we track then if that student shows up in fourth grade behind or ahead or? So
Yes,
that,
so we do track them, and we do have that information, for example, the stride, and that's pretty much how we identify the students that are receiving the RTI assistance.
okay. And that's good. And I know that we have those interventions. I just want to have a better understanding of what that looks like. But in addition to that, now we have students that don't need intervention. They're in there, they're scoring very well. And we talked today about TAG being a pathway. What are these other pathways that are going to motivate our children to push even further to achieve? And what I'd like to know is what do those strategies entail? There may not be any. They're not in an intervention mode. We may not do, I want to just have a better understanding so we can build strategy behind that.
And Mr. Macias, that's where differentiation comes in.
I know.
On the teacher's behalf. And I think it's a good idea that when we start this, looking at this project that we're going to report to you in June, that we include the teachers as well. And so we're going to make sure that we include them when we start meeting with the principals.
Well, this is my vision, and again, just mine, and I'm sure the board has some opinion on this, but my vision is that we literally gather all of those ambitions that we could, if we could do this, this would change things. And we start to then build them into our budgets. We build them into our programs. Later on, we're going to talk about summer programs. And the bridge there needs to be much more aggressive, in my opinion, to help the bottom line when we're talking the transition from end of year to the beginning of the next. But my colleagues and I, we would need to know where the disconnect is and where we potentially would need to add more funding so that Park Village is doing a heck of a lot more in the summer to help students that are at risk there. And then, of course, you have the mobility issue. What campuses are being attacked with that issue? So, like I
Well,
said.
let me
Yes.
go ahead and address some of the areas that you talked about. For example, Park Village. Because they are in a high mobility area, we have identified that, and we do allot additional monies through title funds to address the high poverty, high mobility, and the at-risk of the students, okay? So we do that. Now, over the summer, this year, we may not have as many summer programs as we would like, but we have grouped some of the schools together so that we can provide the services to the students during the summer. But we do keep track of where the students are, and especially through title programs, we do stay on top of where the students are, and we are assessing them frequently.
Well, and thank you. I will add that we probably need more than title funding. We will probably need to shift operational funding if we're going to look at an advanced tutorial program or if we're going to add instructional aids in the classroom. I'd love to hear from our teachers if that's going to be a differentiator in giving teachers the support to ensure that every child is receiving as maximum amount of support. That could change everything. And if we know you put in 5 instructional aides on a campus, then let's find money to put 5 instructional aides in every campus to be that differentiator. But we can't make a decision without data. Henceforth, the comprehensive study. We need to be strategic and understand what is going to work, what's going to work within our means, because again, we don't have an unlimited amount of resources, but we certainly have the ability to at least understand what the problem is. This study will identify that, and my hope is that we can go to foundations, much like what San Antonio ISD has done. And they've gone out and said, look, we need this, and we could change the whole game. And so that's what I'd like to see this study truly produce in terms of understanding what we're doing, what we can do to improve.
And what I will guarantee you, Mr. Macias, is that whatever strategies that we bring forth, that they will be research-based and that they will be effective in addressing student performance.
And that's how it should be, right? So absolutely. I just want to, recently we had preliminary reports regarding 5th grade and secondary 8th grade. And when you looked at our results in 5th grade, they were phenomenal. I mean, they were competitive. And so that tells me that there's some good things happening, but there's opportunity at the secondary level at 8th grade.
I would like to address, actually, I'll ask our CNI Executive Director to address that.
Yes, sir. In reference to the report, I will ensure that teachers are represented, that their teacher voice is heard during the comprehensive report data gathering piece. As far as the performance, I would just like to point out for elementary and secondary that there was a change in cut scores from last year to this year, specifically at the elementary. And this is typical during a legislative year, but I will note that the elementary percentage cut scores were lowered in reading. Last year, there was a 58% cut score, and this year it decreased to 55. So across the board and across the state, we saw that there was an increase in the elementary 5th grade scores. And from 76 to 74% in 5th grade reading in approaches and meets. In the 8th grade reading, the meets cut score increased from 75 to 77%. So you'll see that there's less progress in that area. And then in math, there were changes in 5th grade from 72 to 69% in the meets, and in 8th grade from 48 to 45% in approaches. And I can provide that information to you in writing as well.
Well, I appreciate that. What I want to do is I want to be the best district. Yes, I want our percentages to be stronger than Northside, Northeast, Church-Cibolo, because we can. We're not so monstrous like Northside, where it is very bureaucratic. We're like a medium-sized district that should be more reactionary and be able to move quicker in terms of addressing these things. When I see those scores, you know, I like our athletics programs, and we have great athletics, but I want to be number one. And so to be number one, we look at our competition in this community that reflects what we look like. And we look pretty darn competitive in terms of the 5th grade scores across the district. We went down in percentage points compared to other districts that shows opportunity. So I realize that they lowered the scores and all that kind of stuff, but we should be striving to be number one. And so this study, God willing, will provide us the strategy, the data, the understanding. It could even be the fact that when I ask for title funding expenditures, because we rely heavily on title funding, what is underutilized? How are we utilizing every dollar, and are we evaluating that? Based on the backpack discussion we've had, that was disconnect at that point. I think we're stronger now in evaluating our title funding expenditures, but ask a teacher, how is that title funding working? Are we getting what we want out of that? How can we look at that and shift it? So those are questions that I can't, I mean, it's so broad, I don't know those answers, but I know that the vision is there, and that's what I'm hoping we can get.
And Mr. Macias, I do want to reassure you that when we do look at title funds, it's not something that the CNI department chooses in isolation. We do ask our principals to give us feedback as to how they want to spend the money. That's one. As far as being competitive, that is in our nature. That's why we're in this business. We want to make sure that our students are successful. Now, it may reflect it or not, but I also want to point out that these were preliminary scores. Preliminary. So, but I do want you to know that we are not just sitting around. We are working to ensure that our students are being successful.
And I want you to know that this board is also working to ensure we do what we can to support you, to support our teachers, to make sure that we are number one, even when they do preliminary scores. I want to be number one, and I think we can. So it just means collectively we work as a team, and that, again, it's just, maybe it's a pie-in-the-sky dream, but that's really truly what we're here to do. And so we want to, at least, I can't say we because I can't speak on behalf of my colleagues. I want to ensure that as a board member, I'm helping our teachers and we are trying to make student achievement number one, that we are number one. Thank you.
There's no further discussion. We'll move on to D, update district and campus websites with historical district facts. Ms. Pichelle.
Thank you, Dr. Salinas. Dr. Montoya and board, the reason why I asked for this to be put on the agenda is because I thought about something, and it was after I found out what Northside ISD does when they name their high schools. They have it written into their policies that their high schools are only named after Supreme Court judges. Their middle schools and elementary schools can be named after local leaders, and a lot of times they're named after past superintendents. But the reason that I wanted this to be on the agenda is because I think that we have a lack of historical data on who the people are that our schools are named after. And I'm just going to use Pichelle Elementary as an example. I wonder why. The last time that I was at Pichelle Elementary when I was involved with you all with the Prize Patrol, I was talking to some of those students, and although my dad's picture is right up there in the foyer when you walk in, most of those kids did not know who Mr. Pichelle was. And when the new principal was assigned to that school, was hired for that school, she invited me in to get a verbal bio on who William Pichelle was. And it just made me think about all of our other schools who have someone significant that we chose to name the school after. But on our website, there is no historical data of who those people are. So I would like to see what we can do about gathering historical data that's on our website on who schools are named after or why the school is named after a particular subdivision that the school is in, and even as to administration, and specifically, who was the first superintendent of Judson ISD, and who were the first board of trustees with that particular superintendent, and then a timeline of all the superintendents, past and present, the boards that's
And I know,
to be on the website.
Member of the board, there is a district website that has partial information, but I know Mr. Linscomb can put something together. We can do a little more research and try to put something together, and I think Mr. Linscomb taking her ideas and kind of crafting that, researching it, and then adding it to our website.
Yes, sir. A number of the campuses, each of the campus obviously has their own website, and they actually have their own webmaster there at the campus where they are. And that webmaster, generally speaking, is responsible for putting all sorts of different kinds of updates and news and information on those websites. And we can get together with those webmasters. We generally do during the summertime before the beginning of the new school year occurs, just in terms of training and so forth, and we can certainly talk to them about that. So whenever you talk about the superintendents, you're talking about the very beginning all the way to the present, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Who was our first superintendent of this district? When I was in high school, it was Dr. You know, I just would like to see something like that, a little bio of the superintendent and who the administration, the board was at the time that they served of each administration.
Yes, ma'am.
And I was also, I was thinking about, you know, new families that look at Judson ISD coming into this community that don't know anything about Judson. There are a lot of young families that are in this district now that, you know, they don't know what the legacy of the district is. And that was the reason why I came up with it.
No, we can follow through on that, you know, research and put something together, so.
Yeah, I do believe that the board does know there is actually a history page there on the main website. There's actually some videos, as well as a recounting of the beginning of the district and so forth. It's not exhaustive by any means, but it is there, and it gives people an idea of where this district came from, how it was born and built, and so forth. So in a general way, we do have that, but we can certainly look at expanding that to some degree.
Ms. Canoyer.
Ms. Pichelle, I think it might be very easy for every campus to have an About the School page added to their website. And in that, they could put the story of the school when it started. I know a number of our schools were renamed, and so perhaps, you know, for example, Hopkins Elementary used to be Kirby Elementary, Franz Elementary was Live Oak Elementary. So some of that history could also be incorporated there, and I think that would be something that would be not too difficult to arrange. So I'm with you on that.
As a former history teacher.
Okay, we will move on to item E, discussion of summer programs. Mr. Macias.
Yes, ma'am. The summer program, I think we requested a list of summer programs, and it's been provided. What I didn't ask, though, was that it be compared to what we had last year, just to have an understanding. I'm trying to gauge if we've gone up or down, and I know this year we've been impacted with facilities, so I want to know exactly what that looks like. If we have a map of what our programs looked like last year versus this year, so that we can start plotting what we need to look like next year. And I've been, in my community alone, I tell you, I've received a lot of requests for support during the summer because I understand that the city of San Antonio has reduced their Parks and Recs programming. So you have a lot of kids that need some support in certain communities. So.
And again, you're correct in your statement that because of bond projects, we had to do some modifications and combining programs and moving programs. But Dr. Fields, if you want to address some of that.
Yes, sir. I'm Ms. Grady, I believe, is in charge of summer programs, but when we matched the summer list this year compared to what we had last year, what we saw was a difference in the Boys and Girls Club. It used to be at Metzger and at Judson Middle and at Candlewood, but this year we had to limit them to Metzger Middle School. And then I'm sure that we had more camp invention and learning programs because this year we're limited on the number of schools that they can go into, but we've tried to accommodate. When they've come back and said this is the week that we want to do it, then we've got with the architects and contractors and asked them to kind of stay away for that week, and then we come in behind them. But other than that, there's another program that a church did at Converse that I felt like was pretty successful, but they didn't come back this year to say that they wanted to do it again. So there have been some.
Well, that's a program that I helped facilitate too in Converse,
yes,
and they couldn't do it this year. But it does open the door for opportunities to partner. And like I said, but we can't, do that until we know exactly what we have and what we need. And so I just would like to see that as a comparison. I think we got all the lists, but there was no range to figure out if it was more or less or.
Maybe Dr. Fields, if you could do that, and we'll send it on a Friday newsletter to the board.
We can do that, Mr. Macias,
Just-
but
just
I
a
can assure
comparison.
you that we have the same programs this year that we had last year.
Then
minus
it should
the
be an
Boys and
easy
Girls
cut and
Club.
paste then. Cut
Yes,
and
sir.
paste.
I can
But-
send you both.
But, yeah, I want to just know, because again, my vision and hope is that we are expansive of these programs. And then secondly, we did have a program, I received a couple of emails from parents regarding the PrEP program. In fact, somebody even mentioned it during the Citizens to be Heard. And the PrEP program, we allocated funding to have kids go to PrEP. I understand that we are not supporting that. At our last discussion regarding this, I did request that we consider those that already are in the program, that we help facilitate some arrangement. Where are we on that, Dr. Montoya?
I think Dr. Cantu, one of the issues, I know it became a financial issue. The university technically increased a massive amount for tuition without letting the school districts know. It was just, here's your bill and here it is. But go ahead, Dr. Cantu.
Mr. Macias, we revisited the budget with your recommendation, and we were able to fund the students that have participated for 2 years. We're going to do a phase-out for year 3 and year 4. So those students the memo went out, I believe, earlier this week to parents. And we are going to also offer the STEM camp this summer, and we have approximately 125 students enrolled. So it's the best of both worlds.
I know, we need 10 of those STEM camps. But so what I'm hearing you tell me then is that the students that are in the PrEP program that were accepted will be able to help finance some of their tuition? Because I think the difference was it was 300 last year, now it's 500. So are we meeting at 300 or are we underwriting all of it?
We were able to find the funding to fully fund it for the students that are year 3 and 4.
Okay. And what happened with year 2? Did we just?
Those students are being invited to the STEM camp that we're hosting internally.
Okay. Okay. That's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Pichelle.
Dr. Montoya, I would just like to ask, where can parents find out about these summer programs? Do they get flyers at the schools?
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Cantu.
Yes, ma'am. What happens is the recruitment effort happens directly from the school, from UTSA, particularly for this PrEP program, and they are the ones that also select the students. The Office of Post-Secondary then receives the names of the students that have been selected, and we are able to communicate with them and let them know additional information.
Okay, I'm not just talking about the PrEP program. Okay. I'm talking about this entire list that we got from Ms. Grady. She did such a great job. Thank you, Ms. Grady. I'd like to know, how do parents find out about these programs?
Dr. Fields, I think you've been looking at that area. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Grady, I didn't see you up in there. Yeah, she can explain this because she helps us in that whole area.
So regarding the brochures for each of the summer programs that were on the list from last year, we provide that to campus principals. In fact, we'll be doing that at the superintendent's leaders meeting. We, in the past, have placed those brochures on the website. We've not done that yet, but hopefully if there's space, we can place those brochures on the website. But we do allow the principals to have access to those so that they can give them out when they're talking to parents and enrolling students. Yes. Yes, they can. You're welcome.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll move on to F, update on board advisory committees. Does anyone have any updates? Ms. Knoyer.
I always have an update because I'm on one of the best committees. Our final meeting of the curriculum committee is on Monday, and Ms. Davis has forwarded us the agenda, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the consensus is and what the plans are heading into next year. She's been an excellent leader. We have wonderful members who are not afraid to share their ideas, and many minds together are making great work. So I appreciate everyone who's involved in that effort.
Thank you, Ms. Knoyer. Ms. Pichelle.
Yes, I'm on that finance committee, and in the last meeting, Mr. Elizondo was able to give an update on what we were doing in our budget process.
Anyone else? Okay. Update on G, update on board trainings, conferences, events, and consider future agenda item requests by board members. Ms. Canoyer.
I'm taking advantage of the live streaming so that I can highlight some of the events I've been going to. And I won't list every single one because May's been a very busy month, but I do want to take a few minutes to talk about just a couple of things. First of all, the our Judson Education Foundation held their prize patrol where we delivered the news of the grants that the teachers received. It's a wonderful, exciting day. We had the drumline from Veterans Memorial High School accompanying us this year, a football player and a cheerleader from each of the high schools, and then also ROTC members joined us this year as well. So it was really wonderful spending the day with those students and delivering good news to some of our teachers. And then we followed up later in the week with the scholarship squad, where we notified students at Wagner, JECA, and Judson High School and JLA of the scholarships that they had been awarded. No veterans this year, but next year that we'll have seniors there, so we'll be making one more stop. I also want to take a minute to highlight Jeff football camp that's coming up, so all you people listening who have kiddos that are interested in working at the football camp, June 9th and 10th, we'd love to have you. That information is on the website. And our golf tournament, Jeff Fundraiser Golf Tournament, is June 11th, so if you've got somebody who's really into golf, talk to me or talk to Ms. Greathouse, working in the Public Information Department, who is our director of the Jeff Foundation, who can get you hooked up to donate some money and have a really good time. And then today, I know, I'm sorry, I'm going on and on, but I'm so excited about the wonderful things that happen in our district, and I'm really honored that I get to be able to go and see what our teachers and staff and our principals, everybody is accomplishing. But today was really fun because I went to JLA, which is, for those of you who don't know, is our alternative learning environment that we house out in Rolling Oaks Mall. And those are students who have not been successful in our traditional high schools, and I'm very pleased that we have an opportunity to make sure that we don't lose those students, that they graduate and that they move on. And Ms. Baker, I see her out there, had arranged for volunteers from AT&T and from Dunkin' Donuts to come in and do mock interviews with those students. So as they move on to further their careers, work their way as they move on to community college or vocational schools or university, or even just straight out entering the workforce after graduation, they've had an opportunity to practice what it might be like to interview for that dream job. So I congratulate you on that and appreciate the invitation. And now I'll hush.
Anyone else? Okay, we will move on to closed session. The board will now adjourn into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Section 551.074, discussing personnel or to hear complaints against personnel. B, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, attorney consultation regarding legal issues related to possible proposed non-renewal, including possible scheduling, procedural rules, and legal representations for any non-renewal hearing. Yeah, I was going to say, please don't leave because then we won't have a quorum up here. So, I understand, but you're not at the dais, so I started to get nervous. C, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, consider and discuss issues related to the possible proposed non-renewal of a term contract teacher. D, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney to discuss district-wide facility assessments and property insurance-related matters. And the time is 9:15. 1, 2, 3, 4. Are we ready? Where's Mr. Missy?
Yes. Otherwise, I would start without him. He's in the restroom. He said, go ahead.
He did, didn't he? Okay. He wants to miss it then. I'm surprised. The time is, we are back in open session. The time is now 11:02. No final action was taken while the board was in closed session. 9A, consider and take possible action regarding personnel.
Motion. Second.
Motion, Ms. Canoyer, second. Mr. LaFoille, we already have voting up, so please go ahead and vote. Okay, it's not letting me. Oh, there. Yeah. Well, I mean, he said to proceed without him, so.
Oh, here he comes. He's.
It's going to happen as soon as he hits it.
You need to vote there, Jose. Okay.
Motion carries 5 and 1 abstention. Move on to item 9B. Consider and take possible action regarding proposed non-renewal of a term contract employee. Do I have a motion?
It's okay. I'll start. I move that the board accept the superintendent's recommendation to propose the non-renewal of the term contract of Angela Bell, and further move that the board direct the superintendent to give written notice to Ms. Bell that the board proposes not to renew her term contract for next school year, as required by law. I further move that in the event of a non-renewal hearing, the hearing will be conducted by the Judson ISD School Board.
Motion, Ms. Rodriguez.
Second.
Second, Mr. Macias. Proceed to vote. Motion carries 6-0. 9C, consider and take possible action regarding procedural rules and legal representation for any non-renewal hearing. Do I have a motion?
I move to authorize a Walsh Gallegos lawyer to advise and assist the board in connection with any non-renewal hearing, and another Walsh Gallegos lawyer to present the case for the administration. I further move to authorize the board president to sign a consent to representation letter in this regard. I further move to authorize the board's counsel, in consultation with the board president, to impose procedural rules for any non-renewal hearing.
I have a motion, Ms. Canoyer, second, Mr. LaFoille. Proceed to vote. Motion carries 6-0. Meeting is adjourned, and, oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Montoya.
And then again, as we've done in the past, the last item is to share based on your approval, the new administrators. Candlewood Elementary, Miss Andrea Johnson, congratulations. I hope I say this right. Susay Scott, Assistant Principal, Converse Elementary. Okay. Alma Nera Coronado, Wortham Oaks Elementary, 2 schools. Okay. Linda Cruz, Crestview Elementary, Principal. And for Jecca, Josephine Juarez, Principal. And that's it.
Thank you. Meeting is adjourned. The time is 11:06.